So, what's the one thing that truly separates good decision makers from everyone else, especially when the pressure is really on? Well, it's not just about being smart. It's a quality called reasonableness. And today, we're going to break down exactly what that means. I mean, you've seen it, right? We all have. Brilliant people. People who are full of knowledge who just make catastrophic choices. So what is going on there? If intelligence isn't the whole story, then what piece of the puzzle are we missing? And this right here really gets to the heart of it. When things get intense, it's almost never our knowledge that fails us. It's our judgment. And that's the key distinction we're going to dig into. This brings us to a fascinating idea called the intelligence trap. It's this paradox where being incredibly smart and knowledgeable is absolutely no guarantee for making sound decisions. Let's explore why that is. Okay, so here's where we can pinpoint the real culprit. You see, pressure doesn't really test how much you know, it reveals your temperament. When the stakes get high, we tend to get pulled toward extreme thinking, and that is where our decision-making just completely breaks down. And it's not for a lack of effort, it's a lack of a very specific skill. Just think about something like the highly competitive UPSC exams. Pretty much everyone taking that test has access to the same information. They've all studied like crazy. So what's the real differentiator in that kind of pressure cooker environment? It's temperament. It's that ability to stay balanced and clear-headed when everything is on the line. So, if that's the intelligence trap, how do we get out of it? Well, the answer is this quality we're calling reasonableness. But you know what? Before we even define what it is, let's get super clear about what it is not. First off, let's get this straight. Reasonableness is not about being a pushover. It's not about avoiding conflict. It's actually about a much deeper kind of strength. And it is definitely not about just splitting the difference on every issue or finding some lazy compromise. No, reasonableness is an active, really rigorous mental process. And finally, it has absolutely nothing to do with trying to make everyone happy. In fact, sometimes the most reasonable decision is going to be an unpopular one. It's all about being effective, not just being liked. Okay, so what is reasonableness? Think of it as your anchor. It's the skill of keeping your balance and your clarity when your emotions, your ego, or just sheer pressure are all screaming at you to do something extreme. It's about thinking clearly when it matters the most. Now, that sounds great in theory, right? But how do we actually build this skill in real life? Well, it turns out that reasonableness stands on 4 very distinct pillars, and mastering these is the key. And here they are: rationality, fairness, self-control, and practical wisdom. A good way to think about this is like the 4 legs of a table. If even one of them is weak, the whole structure gets wobbly, especially when you start putting pressure on it. So let's look at each one. First up, we have rationality. This is your foundation. It's all about building your judgments on evidence, on facts, on solid logic, not on feelings, wishful thinking, or rumors. A really quick way to practice this: just ask yourself, what's the actual evidence I have for this belief? Next, we've got fairness. This is all about intellectual empathy. It's the discipline to step outside of your own ego and genuinely try to see the situation from other angles. You know, a rational but unfair person is really just a clever debater. A reasonable person is searching for a fuller truth. Try this. For a minute, argue the other person's point of view to yourself, and try to make it as convincing as you possibly can. The third pillar is self-control, and honestly, this might be the most important one in a crisis. See, a reaction is automatic, it's emotional. A response, on the other hand, is considered and thoughtful. Self-control is the thing that creates that tiny but crucial gap between a stimulus and your action. To build this muscle, just start with a simple breath. The second you feel triggered, take 1 deep breath before you say or do a single thing. That's it. That's the beginning of a response. And finally, practical wisdom. This is where everything comes together. It's taking your rational, fair, and controlled analysis and asking the single most important question. Okay, but what will actually work here? It's about finding the path that's effective in the real world, not just the one that's perfect in theory. A way to cultivate this is to start thinking in terms of probabilities, not certainties. Ask, what's the most likely outcome of doing this? So when you combine these 4 pillars, rationality, fairness, self-control, and practical wisdom, what do you actually get? Well, you get a simple but really profound outcome. I think this quote just nails it. Reasonableness is maturity in action. And it's not about age, it's about application. True maturity is the ability to be reasonable when it is so much easier not to be. So what does this look like in the real world? Well, a reasonable person operates from reality. They respond instead of reacting. They have the humility to actually consider other viewpoints and the discipline to avoid those emotional extremes. Their guiding stars are always fairness, logic, and evidence. This is the skill set we've been talking about. And that really just leaves us with one final thought. The next time you feel that pressure building, that emotional pull, just pause and ask yourself this question. The entire difference between those two words, react or respond, contains everything we've talked about today. Thanks for tuning in.